Hey, hello. My name is Martin Yelverson. I'm going to guide us through a reasonably simple, straightforward, but hopefully quite deep Hatha yoga practice. Now, at the heart of Hatha yoga, at the heart of all Hatha yoga, is the idea of raising energy up through the center of the body. There's all sorts of arcane ideas and theories attached to this concept, but today, for today's practice, I want to try and avoid going down the rabbit hole of theory and ideas and keep the practice as physical as possible. Although there's obviously always a kind of underlying meditative and mental component to this, but what I don't want to do is start laying lots of yoga theory on you. I would rather just do the practice physically and see where it goes. Very important not to do anything that doesn't feel good. If anything feels lousy, if it feels mentally disturbing, if it feels physically unpleasant, stop doing it. Turn the video off, walk away, no problem. Just don't suffer for your yoga. It's not about it's not for suffering and feeling unhappy or unpleasant. So if anything like that happens, just walk away. Don't persevere through anything unpleasant. Now we'll be doing a few yoga postures along the way too. Very important to remember that you don't do yoga postures for the way they look. You'll see me doing some stuff, and trust me, I don't do yoga postures like you see them in a textbook. I do them my way. You do them your way. So you're not trying to copy what I'm doing. You're trying to interpret whatever suggestions I'm making to suit you. So you're not trying to force your body to fit into your idea of what a yoga posture is. Rather try and tweak and adapt the posture to suit your body. Okay, first practice we'll do is called Mahabandha. So it'll be using 3 of the yogic energy seals or locks, the bandhas. And we'll start off simply by breathing, and we'll build the layers in as we go along. So simply inhale through the nose. Exhale slowly and controlled out of the mouth. Now, as you're exhaling out of the mouth, bring your attention to the lowest piece of your abdominals. So I'm talking about the area of your tummy between your belly button and your pubic bone. So as you're exhaling, you're pulling that in and up. Just kind of practice it while I talk a little bit. We'll settle into the practice and have a few quiet moments now. Inhaling slowly through the nose, exhaling slowly through the mouth. While exhaling through the mouth, pulling in and up with those lowest abdominals. Now, you don't have to max out that abdominal contraction. It's perfectly fine to do that, but no need to do that. You don't have to. Keep it subtle if you want to. Now, this is your Uddiyana Bandha. It's the beginning of Uddiyana Bandha. Anyway, we will top it out in a moment. But this is the beginning of Uddiyana Bandha. This exhale while contracting and pulling upwards with the abdominals. Uddiyana Bandha means upward flying lock. Just keep going for a little while I'm talking. I can see I'm wanting to start breathing fast because I'm trying to demonstrate while I'm talking, but keep your breath slow. Now, at the same time that's happening, if you've targeted this low area of your abdominals, you'll probably, as you're contracting and pulling upwards, you'll probably be feeling the pelvic floor moving as well. You can start encouraging more active engagement of the pelvic floor. So as you're engaging the low belly, start engaging the pelvic floor. Same idea, pulling upwards from the base of the body. This is the Mula Bandha. This is the root lock. So you're engaging certainly the early stages of Uddiyana Bandha at the same time as you're applying Mula Bandha, upward flying lock and root lock together. You don't have to make too much of a fuss about the Mula Bandha. You don't have to get over enthusiastic about engaging your pelvic floor and pulling up with it. Because if you've targeted this low belly, it's going to take the pelvic floor a bit with it as well. Keep going for a little while. Just getting a feel for inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth while contracting low belly and pulling up with the pelvic floor. Okay, to finally cap out the Uddiyana Bandha, what we do is at the end of the exhale, so I've got to the end of my exhale, At the end of the exhale, You then hold your breath for a few moments and you try to inhale without allowing any air to go into your nose or to your mouth. So I'm not going to block, you can block your nose off with your hands. You don't have to though. You really don't have to do it. Try and get the idea of this. So here I am, I'm at the end of my exhale. I'm holding my breath now. Now I'm going to do what I would do if I were inhaling without allowing any air to go into my body. Quite strongly, really try and take a big attempt to inhale, but don't let any air go in. And what you're looking for there is a feeling of engagement around the ribs and in other parts, sort of just underneath the ribs. You'll feel as you're trying to inhale, no air's going in, but I'm trying to inhale. Feel everything lifting up through the body. So your rib cage muscles will fire up in the ribs, muscles will fire up around the abdomen. But what also should be happening, what you're looking to feel, is where you've been pulling in with your tummy, you'll feel things pull up even further into your rib cage. You're using pressure in the rib cage with that attempt to inhale that's not an inhale. That pressure pulls things upwards towards the direction of the rib cage. As you do that, you drop the third lock in there, the Jalandhara Bandha, the throat lock. So I've got to the end of my exhale. I start pulling in and up with this inhale is not an inhale, and I bring my chin to my throat. At the end of that, you hold it for a couple of seconds. At the end of that, puff out through the mouth, bring your chin back up, inhale again. Exhale, contracting the tummy, contracting the pelvic floor. At the end of that exhale, don't let any air go in, but try to breathe in while holding your breath. Things rise up, chin to chest or throat. Puff to release and repeat. Lots of talking there. I'm sorry, it's a really hard one to try and convey super quickly. It would be better if we were all sitting together and chatting about this. But have a little go with this. See if any of that landed. At the very least, you're just going to sit and breathe for another minute or two. So we'll practice this for a little while because we're going to come back to it in various forms through our session here today. So I'm just going to be quiet now for a little while. I'm going to practice it myself. Hopefully some of what I've said for the last little while has given you some stuff to work with. I'm going to repeat the basic instruction one more time and then be quiet. So in through the nose. Out through the mouth, engaging tummy, engaging pelvic floor. Hold breath. Chin comes in and down towards throat and chest. I attempt to inhale, but I don't allow any air to go in. Muscles fire up. Belly content starts sucking up towards the rib cage. Hold it for a second or two. Puff to release, look up and repeat. The next time you release, just return to an ordinary relaxed form of breathing for a little while. Notice if what you've just been doing has had some impact on what you're feeling in your body, Just notice the impact of what you've just been doing for a minute or so as you sit there with a relaxed, ordinary, in through the nose, out through the nose, yoga breathing. So we're not exhaling through the mouth anymore, just breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Observing sensations in the body. Okay, I think it's been sitting for such a long time now. I think it's time to move the body a little bit. I'm going to tweak the angle of my camera just a little bit. Going to do some simple stuff. You don't really need to look too closely at what I'm doing, because for the first thing, what we're going to do is we're on our hands and knees. I'm going to lift the head up, lift the chest up as we inhale, and then exhale to round the back. Bring the bum down towards the feet. Come down into a child pose. Head all the way down, elbows on the floor, forearms on the floor. That's all happened on the exhale. And then repeat. Coming up on your hands and knees on the inhale as you lift your head and chest. Exhaling, rounding the back, moving your bum down towards your feet as you go into child pose. Head to the floor, elbows to the floor, and keep going. Keep going for a little while longer. Trying to do these two movements in harmony with the breath. So one of the movements is happening on an inhale, the other of the movements is happening on an exhale. And allow the movements to be slow, which means allow the breath to be slow. Really slow the breath down, so let the movements be slow as well. After your next exhale, your next child pose, bring yourself up onto your hands and knees and make your way into a seated position. We'll do a few more movements in this kind of not particularly, kind of flowing sort of vinyasa, traditional vinyasa, basically moving from one position to another with breath. But what we're going to do now is a bit trickier to do that, so don't get too hung up about trying to pin one breath to one movement. In fact, for this one, we're going to slow it down a little bit and hold positions for a few breaths. Okay, so our first position it can be kind of awkward to get yourself into it, but see how you see what you need to do to get into it. So what we're going to do is here we are. We're sitting on the floor, bum on the floor, hands on the floor, somewhere around the hips, feet on the floor. We're going to then come up, take the knees forward. We're trying to get our knees down to the ground. Now see, hands are moving here a bit as well. So you might need to change the position of your arms. You might need to change the position of how your hands are. But you get yourself into some kind of position. Look, big things happening with the feet here, so be careful with your feet. And once you've got your knees down, you try and pick your pelvis up. Take your head back a little bit. You don't let your head hang back like a complete. I mean, if you're happy letting your head go all the way back, that's totally fine to do. If not, just keep your head up a little bit. But try to pick your pelvis up, stretching those muscles across the front, upper parts of the legs. Going to move from here, coming up, taking the hands somewhere there down by the knees and making your way into a downward facing dog. If you want to hold your downward facing dog, steady and breathe for a while, do that. If you want to pedal your legs in and out for a while, do that. Keep the posture alive by involving the whole of your hands in the whole posture. So using all of your fingers pushing into the ground and pushing back the whole time through the upper body. Okay, the next part of this project is to get our feet somewhere by our hands into a squatting position. You can do that by getting down onto your knees and getting there and crawling along, do whatever you want to do. You can step, you can jump, but you eventually want to get yourself into some form of a squatting position. It might be a flat on your feet, it might be on the balls of your feet, but find some kind of a tall spine, whatever squat you got, and then come back down. And we repeat that same little thing 2 more times. So start off with your setup, sitting nice and tall through the spine, hands on the ground. Bring the knees forward, bring the hips forward, let the knees come to the ground. Adjust your hands if you need to, knees come to the ground. Pick the pelvis up, let the head go back to whatever degree is comfortable. Really trying to pick the pelvis up here. So you can feel some stuff happening across the front of the upper legs. Slowly make your way into hands by the knees, back to downward facing dog. Hold here for a few breaths. Legs straight, legs massively bent, whatever you want. Ideally in a downward facing dog, you're looking for a long spine. You're trying to find that long spine. So yes, you can get your feet towards the floor and straighten the legs out, but more important to try and find a long spine. We want to get back to where our hands are with the feet, so do whatever you need to do to come forward into a squatting position. Flat foot squat, ball of foot squat, doesn't matter. Come down to sit. Sit tall, lift up through the spine. Here we go again. Pushing forward with the knees, bringing the pelvis forward. Hands are doing whatever they need to do to facilitate that. Knees to the floor, pelvis coming up. Head going back, but only as far as is comfortable for you. Coming forward again, getting our hands there by our knees. Back to our downward facing dog. Push back strongly. As we hang our chair for a few moments, you could possibly, if you're so inclined, investigate the idea of applying your Uddiyana Bandha here. So inhaling, exhaling. As you're exhaling, engaging the lower abdominals. At the end of the exhale, trying to breathe in while not breathing in. So you're sucking upwards through up into the abdominal area, into the rib cage area, puffing out. And then let's come down onto hands and knees and go into child pose. It was kind of a random suggestion, the idea of applying Uddiyana Bandha in downward facing dog. Absolutely not necessary, it can be an interesting thing to do in downward facing dog. I personally think the way we did it at the beginning is a more interesting way to do it because it becomes a more meditative practice, but it's usable in postural work as well. But we're just going to chill for a moment. Remember, if child pose is an uncomfortable position for you, you can come up kind of on your hands and knees and just let your head come down to the ground. Preparing for our next movement. So our next movement, we're going to be starting in this child pose kind of position. You can have the tops of your feet on the floor, you can have your toes on the floor. I think I'm going to start off with my toes on the floor for this one. We're going to take our arms really far out in front of us, our bum still pushing back a little bit. So our head's above the ground now. We're going to float forward. Doesn't matter if your head is, at its strongest, this practice will be with your head just above the ground, but you don't have to go forward with your head just above the ground if that's a mission for you. But we're floating forward, we're floating forward, we're floating forward. My head is somewhere by my hands now. Now my eyes start looking up. As my eyes look up, my head starts coming up. I let my pelvis go down. I move into this big spine extension. So I've lifted my chest up. I'm looking up. My head's gone back. And engage your bum muscles here. Engage your gluteal muscles here. We'll stay there for a breath or two. We go back now. We round the back as we send our bum back towards our feet. We round the back. And we repeat this. We float forward again. When the head's near the hands, look up, bring the head up, bring the head back, bring the spine up and back. Engage gluteals. And we keep going. So rounding your back when you go down. So we're going in and out of this extension. The extension as we rise up. And then we flex the spine as we go back down. Now this movement, you can hold each posture for a few breaths if you want to, or you can kind of flow it if you want. It feels nice. Provided this is a comfortable position for you, it can be a nice pair of movements to flow. Next time we're down in that child pose kind of position. We're going to hang out there very, very briefly, and then we're going to come up. We're going to come up in such a way that we kind of, our toes, see what's happening here. I'm sitting on my heels, so I'm going to turn so my back's facing the camera. So you want to have your feet close, kind of close together here, with the heels pointing reasonably upright. So watch out for your heels dropping out to the side. You want to keep your heels reasonably upright. You want to try and make sure all your toes are making some contact on the floor. You might need to manhandle them or woman handle them, so your little toe is making contact as well. Adjust your position. Maybe the feet are together, the knees might open out a tiny bit, and you sit on the back of your heels. Can be very strong on the feet. If it's too strong, hands come forward, take some of the weight off. Totally fine to do that. But if you can, we're going to just sit here for a little while. Lots of liveliness in the bottom of the feet. Sit tall and breathe. And now stress, if it becomes too much, bring your hands forward and take the weight off your feet. Going to hang our chair for a minute or so. Okay, I reckon we'll call that one now. So for the next position, we're going to take the tops of the feet onto the floor. Your feet might be like, whoa, they might be feeling kind of intense now, but we're going to attempt to move on to the next position, which is taking the tops of your feet onto the floor, toes coming together, and you're going to sit back on your feet, hands on the floor, and pick your shins up off the floor. Now this can feel weird. If this is too much for your ankles, like I say, don't do anything that's too much for you. But if you're happy kind of sitting on your feet and bringing your shins up like this, do that. Try it out. Feel lots of interesting stuff happening up the front part of your shins, basically. You're going to feel lots of interesting stuff happening up the shin muscles. Trying to keep your spine reasonably tall, even though we're angled back. You're more than welcome, if you want to challenge your balance, you're more than welcome to take your hands off the floor. But we're trying to keep these legs active and coming up. Just a little while longer. Legs down. Bring the legs out from underneath us. And we're going to go onto our backs on the floor now for a little while. So just lie there and relax. I'm going to talk a little bit now. We're going to, as we lie there on the floor, we're going to practice a mudra or a yoga gesture called Tadagi Mudra, or pond or lake mudra if you're translating it from the Sanskrit. And basically it is what we were doing at the beginning, except lying on the back, and no need to worry about the throat block. So for this one, you're going to be inhaling through the nose, you're going to be exhaling through the mouth, and at the end of your exhale, you're going to hold your breath for a short while, and you're going to take an inhale without letting any air go into your body. So you get that sucking up of the abdominal contents in the direction of your rib cage. And then a little puff to release it at the end of your exhale and your breath retention. A little puff at the end of that breath retention, then repeat again. So it's exactly the same stuff we were doing at the beginning, except lying on your back. And just practice that for a short while now. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling as you contract the abdominal muscles and pull upwards with the abdominal muscles. At the end of the exhale, hold your breath while trying to take an inhale without allowing air to go in. So feeling all the muscles in the rib cage fire up as the contents of your belly, your lower abdomen get sucked up towards the rib cage. A little puff to release and repeat. Just keep going for a little while longer. Now those breath retentions while you are practicing basically you're practicing Uddiyana Bandha, or a form of it lying on your back. While you're doing that, those breath retentions, to start with, a couple of seconds. But if you do this and you get into this kind of practice, you can over time start increasing the length of how long you do that. You don't have to try and break any records for holding your breath. But whatever feels comfortable for you. But allowing, with practice over time, allowing those breath retentions to increase slowly but surely. You should get this nice, quiet moment internally in those breath retentions. Okay, once you've finished one complete cycle of that, release it and just drop into some ordinary breathing. Bring your legs in towards your body. Cross your lower legs one over the other, something like so. So cross your lower legs over each other. And then bring yourself up into a seated position. As you come up to sit, you can grab the front of your legs, sit tall. You can keep your feet on the floor if you want to. Alternatively, you can grab opposite ankles and bring the feet up off the floor so you're balancing on your sit bones. And just sit nice and tall through the spine, either with feet on the floor or feet lifted off the floor. Reasonably tall through the spine for a short while and breathe. Very simple version of womb embryo posture, Garbha Let's come down onto the feet and let's stand up. We'll do a very very short sequence of postures via standing up, just so we're up on our feet for a little while, get a tiny bit of balancing work in to our little practice here today. So we'll do some, it's called Salutes to Lord Shiva. It's a variation of it. And I think with these various practices, the names of them, there's just so many different names for practices that are essentially just moving your body around. So, but I mean, this is, it was taught to me as Salutes to Lord Shiva. So this is what I'm going to call it. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but let's just have a little go, and I'll take us through it nice and slowly. Try and keep it simple. So before we get going, just stand nice and tall through the body. First thing we're going to do, step one foot in front of you. Reach the arms up, nice and tall. So 1 foot, it's a short step. It's not a massive step at all. It's a short step, this one. We bring the arms down, shoulder height, palms facing up. Quite relaxed with the arms. You don't need to be too overreachy. And then you're going to rotate in the direction of that front leg, although you can rotate it to the outside edge of that front leg. You're trying to keep the pelvis kind of square to the front. You're trying to rotate from the waist. You don't have to do anything extreme with the rotation. Just rotating to the side that the leg is out in front. Going to move back, shift your weight onto the back leg. We're coming up into a balance on this back leg now. That front foot can stay just above the ground if you want, but if you can, you're coming all the way up and you're standing on one leg, the back leg. The front leg is kind of inclined to be pulling in towards the center line of the body a little bit, and we're rotating at the waist towards the side of that front leg. We're now going to rotate to the front as that foot comes to the ground. The feet are sort of in the same line now. Arms are reaching up. Standing on both feet now and coming into an awkward posture, Utkatasana, coming down. It's basically a squat with your arms out in front of you. Send your bum back. If your feet are too close together, wiggle them a bit so they are roughly hip width apart. Have your knees inclining above the ankles. So basically just not let your knees go forward. Pull your knees back a bit. Send your bum back. Keep your spine neutral. Breathe. Standing up now. We've still got our arms out. Not pulling too much from the shoulders. Shoulders are quite relaxed, but the arms are out and engaged. Rise up onto the balls of your feet now. Your toes. And we're coming down to another awkward posture. Slightly lower, except this time we're on the balls of the feet in this Utkatasana. Heels are up off the floor. Let's rise up again. So flat on our feet once more as we take a brief moment here. Up onto the front of the feet again. Find your balance. And now we're coming all the way down in this awkward posture. Heels are lifting up. Trying to keep your heels as high off the floor as you can. You're not particularly squatting your bum down on your heels here. Now we bring our hands to the floor and we make our way into a plank posture. Take a few moments here just to push the ground away. Keep your head up. Make sure your head's not hanging down like a dead thing. Keep your head up a bit. Make sure your pelvis is not dropping. Keep your pelvis up a little bit. Rather than trying to think of a perfectly straight plank, better to have your bum up a bit, as long as it's not a downward facing dog up. Bring your knees to the floor. Let the rest of your body come down to the ground. And we'll take a cobra variation now. So for this one, interlace your hands behind you or grab an opposite wrist if interlacing is awkward. Legs long behind you, bring the upper body up, pull back with the arms. Look up with the head. Release. Bring the hands to the front, make your way into a downward facing dog. We want to get back to the front. We want our feet somewhere where our hands are. Do whatever you need to do. You can jump, you can step, you can teleport, you can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to show the simplest possible version that I can come up with just for the purposes of demonstration. Knees to the ground. Step up. Stand up. As simple as that. Reach up. Nice and tall. Bit of a back bend here. Hands going straight up, palms facing the front of you. Let your head go back a bit. A little bit of a back bend. Straighten up. Bring the arms down to your side. Pause. Take a little rest. We're going to do the same sequence, except starting with the legs in a slightly different position at the beginning. At the end of these things, when we do a little run of postures like this, taking a moment to assess, and I don't mean intellectually, but to feel. Yes, feel is a better word than assess, to feel sensation in the body as a result of what you've been doing. Let's go. Next one. This time, other footsteps in front. It's a short step, remember, it's a short step. Arms reach up. Arms come down to shoulder height, palms facing up. Rotate in the direction of that front leg. Rotating at the waist, pelvis is reasonably squared to the front. We're going to put the weight back on that back foot. You can either just hang out there with the weight on the back foot, the back leg bent a bit. Front foot can be hovering just above the ground. Toes can stay on the floor if you want, but if you can, you're coming up. You're bringing that front leg up. You're rotating at the waist. The front leg is inclining to pull towards the center line of the body a bit. Bringing everything back to the center as that foot returns to the floor, arms reach up. Here we are, standing nice and tall, both feet on the ground. Feet are roughly hip width apart. Make that adjustment if you need to. Come down to our first Utkatasana. Send your bum back, find your neutral spine. Keep the knees pulling in the general direction. So they don't necessarily have to be stacked above the ankles, but they are going in that direction. Come back up onto your feet, rise up onto the front of your feet. Find your balance. Coming down into our awkward posture, heels above the floor. Spine will be straighter this time. Knees will definitely be way forward. You can't stack your knees over your ankles now. Heels up as high as you can. Come back onto your feet, stand. Onto the balls of the feet again. Find your balance. We're going all the way down now. All the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Into this toe stand kind of position. Heels off the floor. High as you can. Come down. Bring your hands to the floor. Make your way into a plank. Hold the plank for a few breaths. Knees come down to the ground. Body comes down to the ground. Interlace the hands behind you or grab a wrist or even just reach back. Lengthen your legs out. Lift the upper body up. Bring the head back. Pull the arms back. Breathe. Bring the hands forward. Make your way into a downward facing dog. Push back, work on finding a long spine in this posture. Keep all of the fingers active, working in this posture. Looking to the hands, Find your way. Get your feet somewhere up near your hands. Doesn't matter. Whatever you need to do, get your feet somewhere up there and come into some form of a squat. Either flat on your feet, maybe on the balls of your feet. Just some form of a squat. And then come down to sit. And then let's take maybe a minute lying in Shavasana on our back on the ground. We won't practice the bandhas or anything now. We just relax. Just let everything soften. Let your mind soften, let your body soften. Remember just now when we came up, we crossed the lower legs one over the other. Going to do the same thing, but see if you can cross a different one in front from what you did last time. So whatever leg you crossed in front of your legs a moment ago or a little while ago, try cross a different one in front this time. So cross the bottom, across the lower legs. I'm just going to roll to show like so. Grab the ankles if you can, or the feet, shins if you want to, and bring yourself up into a seated position. If you want to, feet off the floor, but feet can stay on the floor. But you're using some arm strength, however you grab, and you can grab across the front of the shins, you can grab the ankles or the feet, but really use a bit of arm strength here to help pull yourself tall out of the posture, or into the posture. Then bring your feet down and make your way into a bound angle, Baddha Konasana. So bringing your feet together somewhere in front of you. They don't have to be super close. The closer your feet are to your body, the more stretch you'll feel here. So if you want to have a less stretch there, you can have your feet pretty far away from the body. So bring your feet wherever they're going to come. Grab your feet if you can, grab your ankles, and use a bit of arm power here to pull yourself into a nice long spine, basically. So we're not going to round into a fold for this one. We're going to keep the spine extended and long. You're not trying to forcefully push these legs down onto the ground. Trying to relax. But there's a bit of force to, it's kind of like you're using your arms to pull yourself upwards. And breathe. We'll move from this into a seated angle pose, Upavishta Konasana. So this is a wide seated posture. If sitting on the ground with your legs straight and flat, basically not bending your knees, has a horrible impact on your back, try bending your knees massively. So you're totally allowed to bend your knees if you want to. But if you can, straight legs. If you can, we're reaching for the toes to maybe grab your big toe, maybe grab the front of your foot, maybe even grab the outside of your foot. And again, we're using the arms to help pull us tall through the spine. We're not trying to get our chest on the ground for this one. We're trying to keep the spine extended. Bit of a tilt at the pelvis. But pull yourself up tall through the spine, using a little bit of arm strength. If reaching the toes is a mission, reach the ankles, reach the shins, reach the knees, reach wherever you can reach. Maybe even hands on the floor a bit. But find some way of lifting out long, lifting yourself like you're trying to put some distance between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis, extending the spine. And now stress, bent knees is totally cool for this. if straight legs doesn't work for you. Release the posture. If you need to sit cross-legged for a moment, if you need to do some movements with the legs, do whatever you need to do. And move into a variation of Marichyasana, the twisted posture. So there's so many, I think there's like 4 or 5 variations on this. We're going to use this variation, which I'll show you in a moment. So for this one, we're going to have one leg out in front of us. We're going to have the other leg on the inside of that long legs out in front. Sometimes this one, there's variations where the leg goes over, but we're going to try this one with the leg on the inside of the thigh, leg out in front. There's the leg that's upright, the foot that's on the floor, trying to bring it as close to your body as you can, trying to sit nice and tall through the spine. And we're going to be twisting sort of towards the outside of this upright leg. So the other arm, whichever arm you've got on the inside of that leg, you're grabbing the front of the leg, other arm going behind you, and you're moving your way into this rotation. Don't overdo the pulling on that leg with the arm that's on the leg. Don't overdo the pulling. Try and get some of the rotational power from the waist. And try not just to zone out resting on the back arm. Try to keep that shoulder, the back shoulder pulling back. Look in the direction of the back shoulder. Sit tall. Try and get, if you're trying to go deeper into a twist like this, rather than pulling yourself with arm power, try to use waist power. And breathe. Keep your body in the rotation, but change your head to look over the front shoulder. And we release. Bring everything back to the center. Same thing, other side. Send the leg that was just bent a moment ago, send it out in front. Bring the other leg in. Trying to get the foot as close as you can to your bum. Bit of space between that foot and the thigh. And then move your way into the rotation. Rotation, whenever you do a rotation posture, the idea is to try and have a long spine. Try and have a nice long spine. You can even work into the posture by not even using your arms. So starting off with waist rotation and then bringing your arms into the posture. That back shoulder, don't let it collapse forward. Pull that back shoulder back. Rotate at the waist. Gaze is initially over the back shoulder in the direction of the back shoulder. Keep the body twisted, but change the head to gaze in the direction of the front shoulder. And then unravel everything back to the front. I think the last thing we do before we finally close the practice out is we'll do Maha Mudra. Now, at the very beginning of this session, we did it's called Maha Bandha, but Maha Mudra is exactly the same internal work except with a slightly different position of the body. A mudra in yoga is kind of it's a gesture, and it's not quite pranayama, it's not quite posture, it's not quite meditation, but it's kind of all of it combined. But sorry, I'm damned. I'm starting to go down the theory rabbit hole. Let's just do the thing. But it's exactly the same internal work. You breathe in through the nose, you engage your low belly as you exhale through the mouth. At the end of the exhale, you hold your breath while trying to breathe in, and you bring your chin in towards your throat as you pull the contents, that breath that's not a breath. You're not letting air go in, but you're inhaling, ribs fire up, pulls everything upwards and towards the rib cage, engaging the pelvic floor as well. So there's the 3 locks. But the position we do this in, the Maha Mudra, is we do it in the position of the posture. Usually the seated posture, Janu Sirsasana, seated head to knee posture, but we're not going to do that. We're not trying to get out. We're not doing a big forward fold here. To do the Maha Mudra, you don't bring your head down onto your knee. It's an extension. So to get into the position, let's just keep it nice and simple. Bring one foot onto the inner thigh of a leg that goes out in front of you. Okay, so there's the basic seated position. You might be familiar with the posture as Janu Sirsasana. We're trying to reach towards a foot with both hands. But if getting your hand onto your foot is a mission, just have your hands on your thighs or something. What we want here is a bit of a tilt, but an upright spine. We don't want a rounded spine for this one. And we're going to do that, those 3 bandhas there that we applied at the beginning, except in this position. So I'll talk through one, and then we'll just settle in and do a couple more by ourselves. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Engaging those abdominals, pulling in and up. And at the end of the exhale, let the chin drop onto the chest, pull it in towards the throat. Hold your breath while trying to breathe in. Feel that surging coming up through the center of the body. Puff it out and repeat. When you've completed your cycle, we're sort of looking for about 5 cycles. When you've completed that, take a couple of moments just to sit, and then it can have quite a profound impact on how your head feels, energy. Just take a few moments to observe that, and we're going to do the same thing other side. So remember, it's the 3 locks. It's the Uddiyana Bandha, the pulling in through the abdominals, the sucking up with the breath that's not a breath, and the engagement of the pelvic floor, and the chin dropping onto the chest, pulling in towards the throat. The Jalandhara Bandha. So let's do the other side. I'm not even going to guide us through this one. Just take the position. Hopefully you have got what you need to at least explore what I've been talking about, even if it's not feeling like what you want it to feel like just yet. Rather just like basically testing what I'm saying. You might at the end of this think, what a lot of nonsense, I'm not interested. But test it and see what happens. As you finished a complete cycle, bring yourself up. Slowly make your way onto your back and take a Shavasana. Lying flat on your back with your legs out in front of you, your arms out. In a relaxed position somewhere to the side of your body, palms facing up. There's the classical Shavasana position, but it may actually be that you're a lot more comfortable with your feet on the floor and your knees up in the position known as constructive rest position. Doesn't matter, just lie and be comfortable for a few minutes. Let the body soften. Let the body soften. Try simply to see if you can reach some kind of sense of simply being open awareness. So seeing if whatever happens, whether it's thoughts or feelings or sounds, like all of this stuff is simply appearing in consciousness as various events that present themselves into this open awareness, and we're just trying to get a sense of allowing all of that to happen with, as if we were simply that awareness. Basically, just relax and try not to get involved in your thoughts. If you find yourself getting involved in your thoughts, it's a good result because it gives you a chance to step back again. Put that distance there. Now, this has kind of been a little bit free form, this practice with the bandhas, the upward flying lock, in particular, the Uddiyana Bandha, that big breath where you hold your breath and try to breathe but don't breathe. And in the deep yoga theory, this is connected to raising energy up through the body, which some people used to do in the hope of gaining magic powers. Some people used to do for the idea of spiritual liberation. So many, that's the great thing about yoga, so many different strands of why people do these practices. And I think wherever you might come down on what you want to do this kind of work for, obviously your studies will take you in the direction of your own interests. But I think, truly I believe that simply keeping it on the physical level, even if it's basically physical meditation, but even simpler than that, as you probably felt, there's lots of deep muscular work going on there using those locks. You're using muscles that you don't necessarily exercise much. So even on the simplest, most superficial level, as a pure physical practice, doing that internal work has some powerful effects on the body. But ultimately, if you want to take this kind of yoga deeper, it requires much study and practice. I'm going to bring this session to an end now. You carry on lying there if you want to carry on lying there for a little while longer. My voice is going to stop and you'll have a bit of peace and quiet. But whenever it's time for you to get up, do so in a nice, relaxed fashion. But I'm going to say thank you very much if you've made it this far and you got to the end of this video and you've been with me the whole way, thank you very much for joining me. If you want to find out any more about what I do some live Zoom sessions, at least during the pandemic. You can find information wherever I've posted this video. But take care of yourselves. Thank you very much for practicing with me. Goodbye.